Oh, hello again. I'm Wesley Clyngraw, and today we're going to talk about a vegetable stew that I discovered when traveling with the elves. Now, this isn't a stew that you would normally think about, but nonetheless, it is a delicious meal that you can feed the entire family for very cheap, honestly. So, let's get started. Alright, this week's recipe comes from a lovely chap named Darthoridan. The ingredients are on the screen, but just a couple of reminders. You do want to try and find a Chinese or Japanese eggplant, as they are more slender and even throughout. And now, let's get cooking. Alright, so to begin this process, we have to prepare all our vegetables. If you go ahead and prepare all of them and your herbs, makes it a lot easier once you start going. So, first thing we need is some thyme. So we're going to take this, we're going to bunch it up. You want to make sure that it's nice and tight, so as you come down with your knife, you're really getting all of it. And one of the things, you always want to curl your fingers, making sure that you don't cut them. All right, that's a great start. So now we can put this away. Next, we want to take a little bit of basil, only a little bit, because the rest we're going to use for garnish later. Now the trick with this is you want to stack it, fold it, and kind of turn it a little bit. And once again, that just makes it easy to go ahead and chop it nice and fine for our sauce for this dish. Take all of that, put that to the side. Next is our squash. Now, this recipe in particular calls for squash, zucchini, and also eggplant. Unfortunately, eggplant is not in season, and if it's not in season, we don't want it. Nice even cuts, about 1/4 of an inch thick. Oop, there goes one. It's okay if it's not perfect. And once we get to the tip, you can honestly toss that right out. Next, put those off to the side in there. Next, we can grab our zucchini. Once again, just kind of same, straight up and down, about 1/4 inch. That off to the side. Oh my gosh, I can smell that basil from here. It smells delicious. I can't wait. Now, the key to this is definitely having a sharp knife to really make sure you have nice clean cuts. You always want to hold at the base of the blade to give you the most control over your cuts. And once we reach the end there, toss it off. Unless you're in a proper kitchen, then you can just throw it in the trash. Next, our onions. So we want this fairly minced, and the best way to do that is usually I go ahead, I cut it in half. Now we're going to do the entire onion, but it's easier to work in half. So we cut off the very tip, toss that out, and that makes it easy to grab a hold of the skin, peel that off. Next, you want to cut
vertically. Then you come on top. And then that way, as you cut down, you've got nice little dices that you can then mince even further. And once again, ends go off. Next, you gather them up and run your knife through multiple times to really get it nice and small. Because once again, we want this minced. And if you say I'm crying, I'm not crying. I promise. And for brevity's sake, I will do the other half of that onion off camera. Alright, so we've been letting this log burn for a while so that way we can get some coals, because you don't want to do direct heat with this at first. We want to be able to kind of have your pan off to the side, do more of a medium heat, and that's why we let it burn down. So we've got our thyme in here toasting a little bit. Once that kind of starts being fragrant, we want to take this oil that's been pressed from some olives, and you want to go ahead and fill the bottom of that pan. Get it nice and golden. So we take that and we want to stir it. You hear that little sizzle? And now we want to take half of the garlic that we prepared, throw it in. There we go. Continue stirring that so that way we infuse that oil full of the thyme and garlic. You want to do that about 1 to 2 minutes, or until you can really smell it being nice and fragrant. Good. Now, once we've got that, we can add our tomato puree. Add this slowly at first. About 15 ounces of that. Delicious. And then we add our onion into that, our minced onion, and a little bit of our basil that we chopped up. Go ahead, start mixing that around, and we want to get this up to a simmer. There we go. Let that sit for a second. And while we wait for that, I also need to grab a little special ingredient.
Some salt. Alright, once you've mixed in your salt to taste, next work in concentric circles, layering your vegetables. Then cover your dish and bake at 375 degrees for 30 minutes.
All right, so now that we've let this stew, first we had it 30 minutes with the lid on. We put some coals on top to create some heat, just to start softening up the vegetables. And now we've let it sit another 20 minutes in about 375 to 400 degree heat. So now we can top it off with a little bit of salt, some fresh basil, it's already on there, some fresh cracked pepper. And now, let's give it a taste. Make sure to protect the hands because it is still hot. Oh, fork, tender vegetables. So delicious. Very herbaceous because of all the basil, the thyme, the garlic that we put in, and just having that slow roasting time for them. They are absolutely tender. This is so good. Easily feed a family for a night. You have to try this vegetable stew. It is amazing. So we hope that you try this out, and we'll see you next time.